to create a convention that we felt like was truly built from the ground up to be very inclusive of everyone, like make everyone feel like they really belong in the world of fandom, because they do. Everybody deserves a seat at the table and deserves to feel comfortable and safe attending events, and not to be shut out of like networking opportunities and fun stuff to do. So that was the original impetus, and it's been so much fun that we keep doing it, just because it's the number of awesome people that we've met along the way, and just how much everyone, including us, looks forward to that weekend in October every year. It's not that big a stretch to say that sometimes people do go and then come out a little bit changed on the other side of it, and at least in terms of their new friends and their new thoughts on things, and like rejuvenated inspiration.
I think the conversations is what Jesse means. When you come out of it and you've had all of these amazing conversations that you don't necessarily get to have in everyday life, people who are smart and funny and usually quite goofy, and it's becoming a family.
For this episode, we have not just 2 interviews, but 3, as we tiptoe into the darker elm of the Multiverse Convention. First, with dark speculative fiction author Christina Barber. Then we head into the darkness at Inked Publishing, and we welcome in poet and horror author Violet Meyer, and finally, science fiction author Chris Bird.
We're doing all that tonight on the Spotlight series on the Multiverse with your host, Joe Compton.
Yes, hello everybody. I am Joe Compton. Welcome to Spotlight on the Multiverse show. And I'm real excited for this great show. We're going to have some really good conversations, and it starts with the person to my left, Christina Barber. Hi, Christina. How are you?
Hey. Good. How are you?
Good. So I always like to start off the interview by letting my guests tell everybody a little bit more about themselves, beyond the intro. So tell everybody a little bit about you.
Okay. I am Christina Barber. I am an award-winning dark fiction horror author. I am traditionally published, and my first novel was published in 2008. And then I've had 2 more published in 2009, and a bunch of short stories and such as well in there. And I'm just coming back. I kind of left the scene for a little bit, had to get the bills paid and, things like that. So I'm just starting to come back in now, and getting more stuff written and more stuff out there.
That's awesome. And Anita's here. Hello, Anita. Nice to see you. It's we were talking, and you had mentioned that you and your daughter attended Multiverse last year, but this is your first time being a featured guest. How did you get to Multiverse to begin with, and then was it that experience that said, you know what, I've got to do this?
Yeah, funny thing. I was thinking about getting back into writing, and in October, my husband and I, this was like first week in October, my husband and I went to Atlanta Shakespeare Tavern and went to see their performance of Dracula. And I'm standing there, and during intermission, and somebody comes up to me. He says, "I think I recognize you," and it was Robbie Hillard. And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I haven't seen him in like 10 years, And so we got to talking, and I said, I'm thinking about getting back in. And he's like, yeah, definitely, come on back in. So, to me, that was kind of like the thing, here we are. All right, so now I've got to get back in. So I started looking again at conventions, and I even asked Robbie, I said, hey, what are some of the good conventions? And one of the first ones on his list was Multiverse. And I noticed it was coming up like a week or 2 from when I had seen him. And I said, okay, cool. So my daughter and I decided to go for the day and check it out, since, we're both con people. And she does mostly cosplay, and she does some art as well. So I said, sure, let's go. So we spent the day, and it was a great day. We really had a good time, connected with a bunch of people. It really was a very welcoming and comfortable convention. So I thought, let's see if we can get on as a guest this year, and help bring some my specialty to it, and
Nice.
see what happens.
Did you guys travel the art show? Did your daughter see the art show? You said she's an artist.
Yes, yeah. We spent the whole day. I mean, we got there at like 10 and didn't leave until like 5. We spent the whole day in panels, and I went down the writer's track for a little while, and then I went to some of the other panels, and we of course went to the dealer's room, and then the art show, and it was a really good day.
So here you are, a featured guest this year. So I assume you've already looked at the survey and filled it out and figured out what you want to do. Yep. What are some of the panels that stood out to you? What are some of the things you're looking forward to?
Oh, there's a bunch.
Yeah.
Definitely any of the dark fantasy and horror panels, I'm all in. I also have a nonfiction book about ghosts. So I had, and I have been an investigator since 2009. So, there were some panels regarding that. And the thing is that my investigations, we've always done it from a more of a you take it with a grain of salt, and you look for answers instead of just jumping into, it's got to be a ghost.
Yeah.
So that's really where my focus is to try and do it from a very skeptical.
Yeah.
And not scofftic though. There's a difference. There's skeptic and what I call scofftic, and the scofftics are the ones who say it doesn't exist, it can't exist. I think there's a possibility, but I'd like to make sure that we have all the information and not just be screaming it's a ghost.
Well, it would behoove me to ask you then if any of those travels have led you to Peach Tree City before.
Yes.
Oh.
Many of my travels have led me to Peach Tree City.
Oh.
I've done a few private residences in Peach Tree City. I've also done a lot of work in Fayetteville. And the book I have, The Spirits of Georgia's Southern Crescent, is all about ghost stories from like Noonan, Union City, Peachtree City, Fayetteville, that whole, swath. And so,
so the night walks might be an interesting walk after all.
Could be.
Interesting. I mean, it'll be October, so it'll be a nice brisk walk on top of that. But,
oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, that's awesome. I am curious from perspective, because you have a unique take on this then, because you were on the outside looking in last year. So, did it look as spectacular as being there does? Do you feel like that was something that really you gravitated toward? Because, when we're in it, we tend to, internalize that and not see it from the outside. So It's really, really interesting to me to get an outside perspective on how much energy you felt and what you experienced when you were there.
It was very good, and it was very welcoming. And the topics were interesting for the panels, and they were managed very well. There wasn't any, as far as I could tell, from my perspective, issues as far as, going over or somebody not getting a chance to speak, or, it was all handled professionally and well. And so I definitely, that's again, the other reason I was like, yeah, let's go back.
That's awesome.
So, but yeah.
So you're returning to your writer's journey here after a brief hiatus, and is there something different about where you are now as opposed to when you started? Do you feel something different?
It's, I don't know, maybe now I'm more maybe hardened.
Prepared?
Hardened of the experience. I mean,
Yeah.
if you think about it, right now, it's so easy to get self-published and to go out there and promote your books and get traction.
Yeah.
Whereas in 2008, if you weren't published by a large press, you had nothing.
Yeah.
You know, you didn't have Facebook, you didn't have TikTok, you didn't have all these outlets. And so the only reach you could possibly have were conventions, or if you're going to travel to bookstores. But I mean, you know, as a beginning author, you don't have that kind of money. You are not going to be going out there and traveling the world and you know, selling your book. So I was published by small press, so they didn't also have a huge budget for me to be going out there and promoting my books, and neither did they have them for themselves. And as a matter of fact, the small presses that I was published with are currently defunct. They're gone. So, you know, and now there are many, many, many small presses, and the publishing industry is very different. But so, yeah, so it was a lot harder to get published back then than it is now. So, you know, it's like I said, I guess I'm hardened from the experience. I know what to expect, you know, I know, and it's probably easier now with all the outlets, the social media and everything else, that you can actually get out there and get your name known instead of just, you know.
Are you planning on selling at the con this year, or are you gonna kind of get back into it that way?
Yep.
Yeah, nice.
I have all my books that I published for sale, and again, working on other stuff. Hopefully I can have maybe some good news before October.
Nice.
So I can make an announcement like, hey, this is upcoming. But, you know, at this point, I'm still in the querying trenches with some books, and still pitching to agents for a nonfiction I have, and still, writing stories. And so it's so a lot of irons in the fire.
That's awesome. I love that. You know, I'm curious, you being an investigator and all, what do you think is the biggest misnomer about ghosts? What do you think people get wrong more than they get right?
Ghosts don't only haunt at night. I can't tell you how many people have told me experiences that they've had broad daylight. And so why are all these shows and everybody, we have to go at night? Like, who's writing these rules? Because, you know, I mean, that's like TV show drama right there. That's the only reason for it.
That's what it's
because, you know, like I said, you can talk to anybody who's had a lot of paranormal experiences, and they'll tell you, like they're sitting there during the day and something happens, you know? So.
That's awesome. You know, the South is rich with history and ghosts and interesting tales, and there's a lot of cryptid aspects to the South as well, where, you know, people have like their family looms and their interesting, you know, just stories about things like that. Is that the richness of the South, or do you feel like that could be anywhere? It's just that the South, I don't know, maybe the South has a better way of explaining it to people. I don't know.
I think it's kind of everywhere, but I know, like in the South, the focus a lot of times is because of the Civil War, from the Civil War having been here. And so because of that unsettling event, I think that that's where a lot of it comes from. And so, you know, that I think really will help identify for the South where some of that energy and events would have come from. But I think it's really all over. I mean, if you think about in Europe, you have those castles and
Yeah, true. Yeah.
So
And Japan is rich with like ghost stories and things of that nature too. I used to live in Japan, so I know about a lot of those ghost stories as well. But yeah, it is interesting. For your fiction too, you've written some urban fiction, urban fantasy, some other things like that. Is it important for you to have it rooted in some kind of authenticity that's real, or that, I mean, obviously ghost stories, I say that with a grain of salt, real, but I mean,
right.
but at least founded, something that's on an idea of foundation. Is that something that really appeals to you?
Yeah, I think I have a love for mythology, and I love mythology from all places. I mean, my dark urban fantasy, Sealy's Pond, is based on an Asian demon. So, I love finding the different mythologies and in the different cultures. And also, you see the similarities, but you see the differences. And so for me, yeah, I love taking something that's, like a mythology and then bringing it into our world. And I guess truly the best label for me is speculative fiction. That's
Sure.
what if there's an ancient Chinese demon in your garden, so
I love that too. That's really cool. Yeah. I mean, speculative fiction easily is that kind of umbrella that can cover it all for you. But yeah, and you like to dance in the dark a little bit. What is it about? Is it being scared or liking to trying to scare? What is it about the dark that it appeals to you?
I think it's because I like to find the answers. And so to me, having that dark fiction and that darkness makes you dig a little bit deeper. It's not just going to be apparent, like a murder, who done it, like, so I just like to add that additional, that darkness, that, how dark is it going to get? What is that evil? What is its purpose? Why? Why is it here? What does it want? So, yeah.
Nice. You mentioned Dracula earlier. Is there a particular myth or something that you haven't tackled before, and that you've been thinking about or looking at, maybe incorporating into a story or a nonfiction story?
I love vampires.
Nice.
One of the novels that I'm currently sort of still in the process of trying to find a home is based on it's my own vampire mythology. And just like with the ghosts, I mean, I can't stand like the sparkly vampires and the drives me crazy. So I created my own mythology, and they're based on the white women in the Scottish Highlands.
Nice.
So they don't have fangs. They instead have a feeding claw that they just cut their victim. And so they blend into regular society. You'd never know. They can be out in the sunlight. It does hurt them. So they have to kind of expend some of their energy to repair themselves while they're out in the daylight. But you'd never know.
Yeah, I mean, some of it, sunlight these days is hurting a lot of humans.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we've got like 95 degrees here. I'm like, I'm staying in. So.
Yeah, I can relate. Do you have a favorite vampire story? Is there one out there that you really that just you go, that's perfect?
I think it's fun. The Chinese mythology of the vampire is the Jiangxi.
Uh-huh.
And they're referred to as the hopping vampire. And so I think that's a fun one. I would have loved to have created something with that, but it's a little too out there for me. I just couldn't quite come up with it. So, but I would say I probably tend to stay with like the traditional, Vlad the vampire, just keeping it straight and simple. I do know where the mythologies for that came from, like as far as them. I think it was with these. There was one thing that they added in Nosferatu because they had to come up with some kind of reasoning, and so they created it, and that became myth. Surrounding it, because it wasn't previously. I forget which one it is. Can't remember which vampire rule it is, but yeah, and it's fun to see how it evolves and turns into what we consider vampire myth.
I'm waiting for Anita to jump on that. Maybe she knows. She does a lot of lore studies, so she's in our chat. So maybe she'll point it out to us in the chat.
Yeah, I can't remember which one it was. I don't think it was the running water. It was something that they added because it was Hollywood,
Yeah.
They just add stuff. So then that all of a sudden became part of the vampire myth. It really wasn't the traditional. It just.
She thinks it might be the sunlight rule.
I think so. It was something. Yeah. That might be it. But yeah, I was like, okay, cool. I mean,
Awesome. Well, hopefully you'll be able to get what you're hoping to get out by October. That would be awesome. Tell everybody a little bit about what you might be offering, though. Beyond that, you have your nonfiction book about ghosts.
I have my local to southern. I'll call it southern Georgia. It's kind of mid Georgia area, where the convention's being held, Peach Tree City. It's a collection of nonfiction ghost stories, and each of the stories was told to me by the person that had the experience happen to them. I for the novel or for the book, I didn't take any third-person stories. I wanted the first-person story, and then I would go to the location and investigate myself, and then put that in the book as well. So I did things a little bit differently than most people would. But
I like that. That's neat.
That's neat. And then I'll have Seely's Pond, which is my dark urban fantasy with the Asian demon in it. And I'll have Greystone, which was my award-winning book. And that one is a paranormal thriller with ghosts. And that one, just can't even remember right now. that was the one that won the award. So back in 2008. So or 7. So 7. Yeah. So.
Nice. Awesome. Well, everybody, make sure that you stop by Christina's table and get those books from her, and she'll sign them for you and everything. And I'm sure, I don't know. I don't know the first time around if this happens to you, but I imagine when you pitch it to somebody who comes by your table, then the ghost stories start happening. People start telling you about their experiences and things of that nature, right? Yep. That's the really unique thing about that telling is like that's what's going to happen is people are going to be like, oh, you know what? I heard there's this ghost. Have you investigated this one? But right, that's what will happen, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. And that's fun. I mean, that's part of it. That's the fun of it. It's like, it's a community. And I know a lot of people who, when they come up to me at first, they're like, you're not going to believe this. I'm like, yeah, I am. Don't worry about it. I've been there. I've done that. I've heard it. Just tell me it's all right. I'm not going to laugh at you. I'm not going to make fun of you. Just tell me about it. Because I've heard it. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's unique to them. And I think that's one of the cool things about stories like that, too, is that it's so relatable to you because you experienced it, right? So you kind of get that internal, excitement for it. And it helps you sell, I would imagine.
Yeah. But it's also fun, for them to be able to tell their story to somebody who understands, and it's not like, you're crazy, like, oh yeah. What's happened? Seen that,
That's awesome. So where can, for those who aren't going to be at the convention that are watching here, where can they find you? Where can they come and get your stuff and learn more about you and what you do?
Probably easiest is my website. It's www.christina-barber.com. So unfortunately, my name's real common. So finding the website was tough. But yeah, so
I can imagine, yeah.
-barber.com. And you'll immediately know it's me. You'll see the photo and see the books. So it's not like there'll be any confusion. So, and yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I really appreciate it. I know that Mondays can be busy and hectic, and I really appreciate you being here. And I look forward to meeting you in October, and we'll share some ghost stories.
Absolutely. And come on by, and if I don't see you, come grab me and say hi, because I might be like for all these people, and you know how conventions get. You're like, oh my gosh, you see all these people that you haven't seen forever. You're like, oh my gosh, it's her. So, but yeah.
All right, Christina. Well, thank you so much. Everybody will be. I'll have a quick little thing from Inked Publishing here, and then we'll be back with Violet Meyer, which I'm really looking forward to. All right, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Bye, Christina.
If you've ever had a child or been a child, you'll understand just how far a parent will go to fight a ghost who's haunting your kid. I'm Beverly Graves Myers, and I'm going to read a bit of my story, Tomorrow's Ghost. Mom, don't forget the cupcakes for the Halloween party tomorrow. I told Miss Halloran you'd make the ones with the marshmallow jack-o'-lanterns on top. Jordan slung her backpack on the counter and danced across the kitchen to grab a piece of toast. Kathleen groaned as she simultaneously poured orange juice, reached for the peanut butter, and closed the refrigerator door with her foot. Each one of those fancy cupcakes took 10 minutes to decorate. She'd be up half the night. I don't know, honey. Things have been really crazy at work, and I may have to stay late. Couldn't I just send some of those slice and bake cookies that have the pumpkin faces already in them? They'd be a lot easier. Her daughter unleashed the guilt-producing whine that had taken 10 years to perfect. No! I already told everybody how cool your cupcakes are. All the kids will think I'm really lame if I bring grocery store cookies. All right, Kathleen muttered. Staying up past midnight would be worth it if a few Halloween goodies could replace Jordan's recently acquired preteen pout with some old-fashioned, childish excitement.
And we're back, and I got Violet Meyer with me. Hi, Violet. How you doing? You're muted.
How are you?
Good. Nice to see you again. Thanks for doing this again. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting me.
So, we're headed to a new space. Are you pretty excited about that? I mean, I know that you've been to the old space before and everything, but we're all kind of doing this new this year a little bit, which is kind of fun.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about the new space? Are you excited about that? Is it a better commute for you?
I'm from Atlanta, so
yeah,
everything is 30 minutes away. Even when it's 5 minutes away, it's still 30 minutes away.
Do you have to cross 285 to get there?
I'm in the perimeter.
Okay, so yeah. You're gonna be.
It's pretty easy for me to jump on either way.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It is cool. You're a native of Atlanta, or native of Georgia, I should say, and is it kind of neat to have a convention like this for your home space? Do you feel like this is your home convention, like your home?
Yeah. It feels good to have a place where you don't have to always go out. I mean, you have Dragon Con,
Yeah.
but this is a lot more intimate. You get to
Yeah.
mingle with the people, the crowds. It's nice, but
Yeah.
it's not like overwhelming. So yeah, I think it's an awesome thing to have. And I love the diversity in it, and the purpose is very purposeful in its mission. And I appreciate that.
Are you do you go to Jordan Con as well?
I actually went this year, but I can only go one day because it happened. Look, when I booked, it was very weird. My daughter and my husband's, they had a big birthday party that same weekend. I said, "Oh my God, how did I not see this?"
I was gonna say, because that's we missed each other then, because that was I went to my first Jordan Con this year.
Yeah, so I wasn't there but a couple of hours because I missed Friday, and I was only there for a few hours on Sunday.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
For people who Multiverse also, I think, is very unique for what we write, because we're on the darker side of fiction and the kind of things that the horror panels and the things like that. Is that kind of also part of the appeal for you, is that it has that element to it as well?
Absolutely. And I'm a person, I play within the genres.
Yeah.
Hard for me to stick to one. So it'll start sci-fi and a monster shows up, and it's fantasy and a ghost shows up. So I'm all over the place. And I think multiverse is, because I have a multiverse of writing.
Are you going to sell this year too at Multiverse? Are you?
I am.
Nice.
Yes,
Nice. It's really interesting, because I mean, we're all kind of working without a net this year a little bit, and it's very cool. But it's the same feeling. It's the same convention. I don't know. Have you done the survey? I'm sure you've done the survey already and looked at what they're offering this year.
Yes, I did it like maybe a month ago.
Yeah.
I don't remember what's on it.
It
was very long.
Yes. Was there a lot of appealing things though for you? Do you remember that?
There was. And I like the fact that I found something in just about every track that interests me. That's
cool.
Cool. I like that, because sometimes you can get stuck in one track. And like, as a writer like me, I'm not straight horror. I'm not straight fantasy. I'm not straight sci-fi. So I like the ability to be able to jump a little bit.
That's pretty awesome. I have to admit, I spent most of my time at the horror track last year, but I too do appreciate that opportunity.
Yeah.
I like how they diversify and generalize a lot of the panels too, so that it's not so centralized to like a fandom or one thing. You can talk about multiple things with everything you're doing, right? So
absolutely. And they go from literature to books to your own personal creations of writing, and I like that a lot.
Yeah.
In betweens.
Your next book, it's a poetry book, is that right?
No, this Preternatural Haze.
Okay, yeah.
Story collection.
Short story collection. I knew it was a collection of some sort.
Yes.
The cover is so amazing. That is just so
cute.
Yeah. Is it also multi-genred, or is it kind of staying more in a certain vein for you?
It's multi-genre. When I let's see. It's all of it. It has everything from a woman getting accosted by an Egyptian god. It has a female serial killer based out of Atlanta. It has two sisters who are hoodoo witches that fighting over a man, and I even have a rewriting of the Adam and Eve story.
That's awesome! Wow.
All types of things in there.
Are these stories that you've had over the years? Is these new? How did you approach because it's very interesting putting a collection together, right? Because sometimes you got a bunch of stories that never fit anywhere, or that you had them in anthologies before and you kind of want to put them together. Or is this more of you were writing brand new stories and kind of writing around a theme aspect?
Well, it's 9 stories. 5 of them, all of them were written between last year and this year, but 5 of them are originally in this book, but 3 of them are also going to be in 3 anthologies that I kind of wrote them for, but they was like, okay, you can use it too. And so I put those 3 in here.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but all of them are relatively new stories. Those were written specifically because you know how anthologies may have certain themes, but the other ones, they're just random. Like I have these cycles every year. I start a story and it either turns into a novel or a short story. I never know where it's going and I just let it take over. So I'm like, okay. I'm the queen of pantsing.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're very much in the discovery train.
Absolutely. Like I respect it, but I cannot do. Not that I can't do, but I'm a very loose outline person.
Yeah.
Because when I start a story, when I outline it, it never ends up that way. It takes over and I end up with a whole different thing. So what I do now, I just let it flow. And if I have a thought, it's time for me to go to bed, I'll scribble that down and say, this will happen next, this will happen next, this will happen next. But I always give myself room to change.
That's awesome. You're part of, correct me if I'm wrong, but you are part of Milton Davis's Space Funk?
Yes.
Correct?
Yes. My story in there is Space Station 1993.
That's awesome. That must have been fun too. Were you in the other versions of the space anthology?
I was in Cyberfunk.
Okay.
And I'm in all of the Terminus ones. Those are the ones that's Atlanta based.
Yeah.
And that's one I think I share with this book and that book. The Terminus that's coming out, I have a story about a serial killer named Daphne that's based loosely about the Atlanta child murders.
Uh-huh.
And I used that one for this one, and I gave him to that one, the new Terminus. So
I mean, what Milton's doing is amazing,
Yes.
And giving a lot of voice to not the voiceless, but margin, the things that folks that might not have had an opportunity before, and that's a really hard statement because I think it's getting better, but I do feel like that's a real important opportunity that Milton provides that I think is really unique and interesting.
Absolutely, because I think it has gotten a lot better. It really has. Mm-hmm. But it was a time where having a Black sci-fi fantasy writer was just foreign. It was just so foreign to most people. But we've always been here. But it just haven't been promoted. And I think him doing that is a beautiful thing. It really is.
And it plays along well with multiverse as well. Multiverse has that feel to it as well.
And because he has these huge anthologies, what happens is that when you discover one person, you end up discovering a lot of us.
Yeah.
And I have gotten quite a few fans off of that. And it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, and for you, we talked about this last year, but it's important to represent and have that representation and know that exists there and also to not shy away from your culture and where you come from and who you are.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I also loved this year in the programming that it seemed like that there was a few panels that are going to be geared toward that same goal this year. Did you find that as well?
I did. Of course, I signed up for all of those.
I hope so. If you haven't seen Violet on a panel, you're missing out. Again, I know I said this last year, but if you haven't seen her on a panel, you're missing out because she's very insightful. One of the coolest things about watching you on a panel is you absorbing the panel, the moderator's question, and then you lean forward to the microphone and you speak, and it's just like, wow, that's awesome.
Well, thank you, because I'm always like, what am I going to say?
So when does the new book come out?
It was released last month.
Oh, nice.
So it's out now. You can get it on Amazon or my website. I'm going to have a big book release party here in Atlanta at Cat's Cafe. So
oh, nice.
On the 27th, if you're around Midtown, come on through.
Are you going to Dragon this year?
I am.
Oh, nice. Are you going to sell there as well, or do you?
No,
just, yeah.
I'm just doing the panels.
Yeah, that's tough, right? It's
just so
yeah,
it's so expensive. Really. It's like you just have to sell so much to break even.
Yeah.
So I'll usually do it like if I can find someone who split tables. Because I know a lot of people have been doing that. Do
you tend to sell after a panel too? Do people come up to you and want to buy a book?
Absolutely. Yeah, I sold a lot last year like that, actually.
Oh, that's awesome. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that doesn't always happen, but that's really Dragon because of the unique crowds and the amount of people. I would imagine that probably would happen a little bit more often.
Yeah, well, it's according to the panel.
Yeah, sure.
So, but yeah, I always say keep the books with you because it's always people who are going to come up. The good thing about certain places is that, of course, you have people who come to cons that are very much into certain fandoms, and that's one of the things I like about Multiverse. Even though people have their fandoms, they also are very open-minded. They're willing to say, okay, well, I like Star Trek, but that Egyptian god accosting somebody really kind of sounds interesting to me. And I appreciate that because sometimes bigger cons can be so laser focused on exactly one thing. I like being in a place where people are open-minded enough to actually like to read or just like to discover things.
Yeah, it's kind of funny too because I feel like Atlanta is becoming a hotbed for welcoming these conventions in. There's tons of them out there, there's all the types. There's the selling types. There's the convention where you have the panels and everything like that. Do you tend to gravitate to the ones that have more panels, or is selling like it? Just I guess it really depends, huh? You know,
it really depends because it's according to what I'm going there for.
Right.
Because awareness for me is just as great as selling. Because sometimes people don't understand. It's just like how advertising with Coca-Cola. You might not be thirsty there, but maybe 2 weeks from now, someone can go past and was like, oh yeah, I remember that. So you want those people to just still kind of follow. And sometimes awareness is priceless. But I mean, selling helps. I would really like that. But to just get your name out there and find your demographic is priceless.
Did you also base it a little, because we just talked about Dragon Con being so expensive. Do you also base it on what your cost is going to be? I mean, obviously being local helps a lot. You don't have to get a hotel. You probably, you can book it. You can, truck in or, car in some stock. You don't have to worry about that aspect of it either. Do you is that something, or is it familiarity for you?
Cost is everything to me as a writer, because anytime you're doing your art, you don't want to have a $800 table and you have to sell so many books just to break even. So for me, a place like that, unless I'm splitting a table, I'm doing it for awareness, and you can sell a lot after the panels. If people like what you're saying and you're personable enough and they like what you do and you describe your stories, they're interested, they'll come.
Yeah.
So I look at that, but smaller places, the investment is reasonable. And even if it's not that expensive, if you don't sell out, it's okay because you didn't put your mortgage down reserve the table. So it's not a big deal.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So, I mean, is there something you're looking forward to this year? I'm curious, as somebody who's attended Multiverse a few times, is there something that you've always wanted to do that you haven't had, either because of scheduling or something that effect that you're looking for, that maybe you're aiming at? Like every year I tell everybody I'm going to end up at the crafts room at some point. I just never get there. And because it just the weekend gets away from you really fast.
It really does. It really does. I think this year I'm going to really try to, outside of the panels and the selling, I would like to go and participate more and sit to other people's panels, because sometimes you can get so busy going through things and you see yours and you don't actually sit down and just enjoy the convention.
Yeah.
And I want to ask some questions in the audience and do that type of stuff.
Grill your friends. I love it.
Yeah.
So Violet, tell everybody where they can find all your wonderful stuff, and the new book especially. Put it back up there and let everybody see it, and tell everybody a little bit more, where they can get everything you're doing.
You can get Preternatural Haze and all of my books on violetmeyer.com. They're also available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, wherever books are sold. I'll be having a book release party on July 27th at Cat's Cafe in Midtown Atlanta. And of course, you will see me at the end of the year at Multiverse.
Yes, looking forward to it as always. And thank you. And maybe I'll be able to see one of your panels at Dragon Con, and I'll come and I'll raise my hand and ask you a question.
I will do the same.
All right. Thanks, Violet. Thank you. Nice to see you. And everybody. That's so Violet Meyer, everybody. I love it. It was nice talking to Violet, and we're gonna step out for just a second. Give you a little taste of what else is unique about Multiverse, and then we'll bring on Chris Burton.
See you at Multiverse.
Bye.
Even within a smaller con like the Multiverse, there's still so much to do, and it's so hard to find your troop within that. Well, that's where Gigi and her team at the Meat Track come into it. Another unique aspect of the Multiverse Convention is how it breaks off into smaller groups, designated for you to find those like-minded folks you seek to get the most out of your con experience. So here's yet another reason why the Multiverse is the place to be this October. You find out more about the Meat Track and all the tracks that are involved with this year's Multiverse by going to the website at multiversecon.org. We'll see you there.
Yes, everybody, the Meat Track, another great opportunity and something very unique about Multiverse that is great. And what's something very unique about this show is we've got 3 guests instead of 2. Look, everybody, Chris Bird is here. She is real.
Hi, everyone. Yes, I'm really here this time. Last week was a little bit of a technical difficulty, but story of my life.
And I can't apologize enough. I feel like a lot of that's my fault, and I really am sorry about that. And but hey, look, we got an opportunity to sit here and talk now, so that's going to be awesome. I'm real excited about it. I was real excited last week, but now I'm even equally more excited. So the anticipation grew, and what better way than to talk right now? So that's awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time to do that and being so flexible. I really do appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks for having me on your show today.
So, I always like to have the guests start off by telling them a little bit about themselves. So, Chris, tell everybody a little bit about yourself and who you are and what you do.
So I'm Chris Bird. I've been a sci-fi author for over a decade now. I have 2 books out, and I'm scheduling the release of Time Benders, which is my ultimate sci-fi series. I've been working on it for 12 years. That's going to be later this year. And you're the first one that I'm going to announce to. I am coinciding my release date with Multiverse Con. So that's really exciting. And everyone at Multiverse Con is going to get some great perks with that. And they're going to get to come to the launch party. So that's really exciting too.
It's going to be at Multiverse?
Yes,
Party?
I'm gonna make it happen. I'm gonna make it happen. I love to throw parties, so this is a perfect opportunity for Multiverse Con to meet me.
we love I love attending the launch parties at Multiverse. There's a few every year, and it's really great. So that's awesome that you're joining the fray there. So congratulations.
Yeah. Originally, I wanted to schedule my release date with, we're going to remain nameless, a larger con, we'll just say, here in Georgia. And, as some of the other authors were talking about before me, it's just gotten so big. It's just, you just feel like you're just another face in the crowd. And talking with some of what little small fandom we have so far, I was just like, no one's going to remember me. And when I go to this con, I always feel overwhelmed as it is. And I'm just there, just hanging out, having fun, and to be working that for that amount of time and trying to schedule a release, it seemed like too much. And Multiverse Con has been so great to me so far. I mean, they've just been so welcoming. So I switched gears and I was like, all right, this is happening October 15th. Multiverse Con is going to be the first ones to get the books in person. So that's really exciting.
That is exciting. That's awesome. Is this your first Multiverse?
Yes, it is.
Nice.
Yeah, it's my first time at Multiverse, my first time as a guest at Multiverse, speaking on the panels. So I'm just gonna, I don't know, mainline coffee that weekend. I don't know, but I'll figure it out later.
Well, the cool thing about Multiverse, unlike that other con that we were talking about, is there is opportunities to breathe and take time and everything. And they do spread it out very nicely. So you're not going from one hotel to the sixth hotel of the day kind of idea, right? So that's a real nice thing about it. And like you said, being intimate really helps that as well. And you're more with the people you want to be with than people that you kind of get stuck in the elevator with.
Exactly. Yeah. And like Violet was saying, you see all these, you're almost just overstimulated. You see everything, and it's like, who's going to remember me by the end of that day? What if they just met Frodo Baggins, they're not going to want to, they don't remember me. So yeah, I'm really excited for the smaller cons. Tend to be where I meet the best people and we just have the greatest conversations, and we can just go on and on about our favorite fandoms. And so I'm really looking forward to that.
What turned you on to Multiverse? How did you learn about Multiverse?
It was actually so I go to these writers meetups every quarter. Her Legacy, I don't know if you've heard of her whole group, but Gigi Monique Waddell, she's a writer. She was like, you gotta go to Multiverse Con, it's the best. And I was like, okay, I'll give it a try. And sure enough, they signed me up to be on a panel, and before I know it, I'm like, oh gosh, I'm gonna have to speak in front of people. So here we are.
That's awesome. I mean, I'm sure you looked at the survey and realized, after the 5th page that it was, wow, it's pretty daunting to select things. But was there anything appealing to you that you really were looking forward to, that you're hoping to be on?
Basically every sci-fi panel, I was like, yes. And then I was like, oh, I may have signed up for way too much. But I'm really looking forward to the sci-fi / how females fit into the sci-fi genre. Because that's actually how I got started writing sci-fi. I would walk down the aisle of a sci-fi section of a bookstore, and it just didn't look like there was any room for women there. It just looked like where toxic masculinity went to die, to be perfectly honest. And I was like, I need to write something that I would want to read. So I'm really looking forward to any panel that's going to include the female viewpoint in the sci-fi genre. I'm really looking forward to that. That's awesome. I love that. And I love your purpose. I love reading your bio and then reading about your books and everything like that. But I mean, it's important for the representation to be seen and heard, but it's also important for it to be seen and heard in the right context, in the right way. Would you agree with that? There's a difference there, right? I mean, it's not just we're putting women forefront or we're making badass women be the subject. We're putting them in stories that have stories and have context and make it feel like it's authentic. Yeah. I as you're saying these words, that scene in the last Avengers movie comes to mind, where they lined up all the female superheroes, and I'm using quotation marks because none of them got their own movie. And they just lined them up and they were like, here they are, 10 years later, we're putting them all together for this one action shot. And I was just like, okay, no, this is not what we want. This is not what we want. And then not too long after that, Black Widow got her own movie and it bombed, and then she sued Disney. It was like a whole thing, but it is interesting that you say that. It's like, we can't just put in representation for the sake of doing it, just to say, oh, look, we got our brownie points, we did it. It's about integrating it in a way that, women want to read sci-fi. They do. So. Yeah. What is it about sci-fi that really appealed to you? What got you into the genre? Well, I grew up watching Star Trek with my dad. And after taking a straw poll at some of these cons, I found out that a lot of people have the same story. They're like, I grew up watching Star Trek with my dad. And so, I really got into it. And I feel like it's important in the sci-fi genre just because everything is getting so dark. And everything is so dystopian now. I think it's so important to give like a happy ending in the sci-fi genre, which you don't typically see, because we got to look forward to the future, right? Or we're never going to try and, save the planet. Like, we have to have something to hope for and look forward to. So that was why I got into it. I'm a big fan of Neil deGrasse Tyson, and he mentioned something in an interview the other day that struck me. It was very interesting, and he talked about how the wonder of space is disappearing because everybody has all these conspiracy theories or these thoughts about things, and that the movies are getting darker, and it's like when we go to Mars, we end up in a bad place, and all the Mars movies turn out to be monster movies, and then turn out to be the monster turns out to be us kind of idea, and he's like, we need more movies like Interstellar that kind of explore the escape of not just space being part of a narrative, but being an exploratory, the thing that made us wonder and made us feel something about, not being alone and understanding the universe in not only a skeptical way, but in a manner in which that, makes us feel like we're not alone. Yeah. That's really interesting you say that, because I also follow Neil deGrasse Tyson, and he had this video recently about children, about how children have this like sense of wonder and like they're little scientists. And by the time they reach middle school, they've almost lost all of it, that curiosity. And he says, we kind of beat it out of them. And I'm like, we really do. So like, my books are all about like curiosity, like quench your curiosity. Like, don't lose that childish curiosity that you have, because once you do, you're just going to give up. And then what's the point of trying to save the planet or trying to pick up your trash even? You know what I mean? So yeah, I love him.
And it's especially important for young women because it gives them an opportunity to, explore something that maybe not within their reach often, or not given to them because, we compartmentalize certain aspects of science and math and things of that nature, and which is absolutely abhorrent. But I think it is getting a little better, but still. So that's very important for young women to know that they can go explore it and feel that wonder as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's very important to know that women have a place in the scientific future. I mean, I can't tell you how many movies and books where, unfortunately, and written by men, the women are robots or the women are the aliens. And it's just I don't know. That's a little dehumanizing. No. Okay. All right. I'm just going to write my own book then.
Not only that, but they're the sex objects of that aspect of it too.
Yes.
Yeah. Which is
yeah.
That doesn't work very well.
Yeah. We exist outside of this. We want to go to space too. In case we're are we signing up for it? Yes, I'd like the one ticket to space, please.
So tell us a little bit about your books. What the series you're currently working on, and what it's about, and kind of give us a little bit of an overview.
Well, I started writing Time Benders in 2012, and I got so into it and so honed in on it that I started to just sink into this hole. And it was one of my friends, Janine Allen, who was just like, you need to step away from this and you need to write something else because you're more than just this story. So then I did. And then in 2020, I released The Talismanic Urn, which is about a woman who puts her husband's ashes in the cookie jar and the cookie jar comes to life.
Whoa.
And then in I always start with that one because I'm like, if it's too weird for you, you should probably keep on moving. I tend to find that it scares away the people who are not part of my fandom.
That's a good call. It's a nice boost, right?
Yeah. So I had the Time Benders then looked at by a professional editor who used to work for Penguin. And he gave me back this long list of changes. And I looked at it and I read it, but the only thing I can see is you have to rewrite this. So in 2021, I rewrote the entire series.
Wow.
And it was painful, but I did it. And while I was kind of tinkering with that, I wrote The Home Landing, which released in 2023. And this year is it. I'm not waiting another year. I refuse to, I tried to do the whole traditional publishing route. And, like Christina Barber was saying about when I started in the publishing industry, there was nothing. There was traditional publishing or nothing. And self-publishing was the kiss of death, Yeah. And now, if you have $100, you can publish your own book. Really, I mean, you don't need much. So I told myself I would give myself 100 rejections for Time Benders. And while we're not there yet, I'm just I'm tired of waiting. I need everybody to see this story now. And I feel like every year of world events that goes on, I feel like it becomes more and more relevant. And so the Time Benders is kind of like Back to the Future meets X-Men, I like to say. A certain percentage of the population has the ability to time travel using a historically significant place. So if they stand on that place or a hot spot, they can travel back to that specific time period. And then, of course, there are people who want to hunt and enslave the Time Benders. So that's kind of like the X-Men aspect too. So, they're constantly being hunted. They're constantly being, put down. So yeah, here we are 12 years later and it's finally time.
I mean, I don't want you to spoil anything in the book, but what has been your favorite period of time to explore? When you do the research for where they're going to go, what has been your favorite time period to kind of go back to?
My favorite scene in the book is where they go back to the Apollo 11 launch. And I was researching so many things that I was like, "Oh, NSA is going to be at my door any minute." Like, at one point, I found myself Googling, like, how many feet is the lunar module from the Eagle Command Center? And I was like, FBI, are you at my door yet? No? Okay, we'll keep going. But that's a scene that I'm most excited about. I want everybody to be sweating when they read it. So I'm really excited about that. Yeah.
I love that. That's awesome. You know, so if you could time travel, where would you go?
I thought I just told you, Nish.
Do you go back to that time?
Probably, I would probably go back to watch them sign the Declaration of Independence. I just want to be on a fly on the wall in that room and just what was going through your heads, because I feel like here we are, 200 and something years later, and it's like, how many laws are we currently fighting and debating, and how many human rights violations are we currently struggling with? And I just want to know, like, did you guys really think that, like, white men were the only ones to really, like, have rights? Or did you know at the time that this would be the spark that carried us through the next few centuries, that made us think, okay, here we are 200 years later, and this stupid thing that you wrote, like, we're still holding on to that for dear life, because if we don't have that, we don't know where to go. So
right.
I think if I could, I would. I really, really would.
Would you hope to have your mind changed then, or would you feel like it would vindicate or validate what you think?
I like to think, and this is the optimist in me, I would like to think that they knew what they were doing. Because, really, the US, we're the greatest social experiment. And we're still figuring it out every day. But I'd like to think deep down that they knew, okay, this is going to change everything. This is going to change the world. And that's really exciting. Plus, separating from England, I feel like is pretty big. Back then, and we have 4th of July coming up, and that's the most celebrated holiday in the world, which not a lot of people know that every 7 days in the world, someone celebrates their Independence Day from Great Britain. So it's really interesting. But yeah, I think they knew. And that I'm holding on to it, and I guess we'll never know, or will we?
Never know. Maybe. Yeah, it's interesting. It is one of those events that has shaped an entire world forever, and it's kind of interesting that you think about those things, and there's very few of them that have done that, and that's one of them, and and it's one of the most examined aspects of our history too, because people want to know certain aspects of why they thought this or they thought that, right? And historians have really, really shook the trees there. There's a lot out there about it. So,
yeah. And just like I want women to see that there is a place for them in the future of sci-fi, I want all races and women and everyone to see that, hey, there is things in our history that, like, yes, some of them are very, very dark and very, very scary, but there is a place for you there. and there is things that we can see, and there is things that we can learn from. And history is subjective. Something that's historical to one person may not necessarily be historical to somebody else. So, that's what the Time Benders is all about.
And I would imagine for the Time Benders, being authentic is paramount, right? That's everything, right? You have to, there's an interesting idea with writing time traveling novels and things of that nature, is that there are people out there who are mass historians of certain aspects of certain time periods and certain things, and they're also mostly the ones that are going to become your fans and read your stuff, and so they're gonna scrutinize certain aspects of it, and you can't control that. You can only be authentic so much and go, hey, look, it's still fiction. Okay, come on,
Yeah.
But there is an interesting dynamic with it's almost like it's not. I hold it akin to romance readers, in the aspect that romance readers have certain expectations, and science fiction fans have certain expectations, especially if it's rooted in some sort of truth. And that can be a slippery slope.
It is, and time travel in general is a slippery slope.
Yeah.
I mean, there are nights where I fall down the rabbit hole and I'm like, all right, I just got to walk away from it. I mean, even the other day, I found a small plot hole and I was like, God, like this is so complicated. But at the end of the day, you just have to suspend your beliefs, and you just have to say, these are my rules to time travel, so deal with it. If you don't like it, go write your own book.
Yeah, right.
Because at some point you just have to put an end cap, right? Like this is the realm which we're working in. We're not going that far. Otherwise, you can really break your brain, which is a quote from the book.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. We'll look forward to that. Hopefully your party is a time period in which I can be there. I would love to see this and be a part of this. And thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today, and again for rearranging and being so flexible with your schedule. I really appreciate it. It was really nice to talk to you.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
I can't
So
wait
tell
to
everybody
see
where.
Multiverse
Yeah, I can't wait. Tell everybody where they can find everything you're doing, though. In the meantime, where can they check out these wonderful books and everything?
So right now, if you head over to timebendersaga.com, you can sign up for the pre-order. You can actually get 50% off of the book up until release day, October 15th. And Multiverse Con goers are going to get a bunch of perks that everyone else is not going to get. So if you haven't bought your ticket yet to Multiverse Con, definitely do that soon.
Nice. As I always say each and every week on this show, another great reason to come and join us in October. I think this might be one of the best reasons to come and join us in October. You get perks from authors and awesome stuff like from Chris Bird. So that's pretty awesome. And yeah, everybody come and see us in October, and come and see us again next week. We'll be back next Monday with another spotlight on the multiverse. And until then, remember that it's always time to go indie now, and we'll see you all soon. Thank you so much, everybody. Bye.
See you soon.